So you feel like you're tired all the time, or maybe you're not tired all the time, but you're tired a lot more than you would like to be, and it's really getting in the way of your life, right? Because you're not as productive, you can't do the things that you want to do, you're not motivated because it's hard to be motivated when you're tired, and maybe you work a job and you can barely get through your day job and then forget about trying to do something on top of that. Forget about trying to build something, to learn something, to build a business or something like that because you just don't have the energy. Right? I understand because I have absolutely been there. And I think that actually that's how most people live their lives day in and day out, and it absolutely sucks. So I made this video to show you how to escape that situation and how to have a high degree of energy normally, not as something that's every once in a blue moon this wave of energy comes over you, but something that you can actually control and be able to have some say in, be able to predict. That's the word I'm looking for. Be able to control and predict that you'll have energy, and to have that as your normal state instead of being tired as your normal state. And so there's there's two factors, there's two angles to this. One is the more obvious and one of them's the less obvious. So we'll start with the more obvious way, and that is through optimizing your health. So you probably have some idea of this already, but it may not really have dawned on you exactly. If you know, maybe the most obvious way is that I grew up hearing that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, which is just one of those things that people repeat because they've heard it before and they really don't know where it comes from. They don't know if it's true. And there's a lot of things like this. There's just sayings that are popular in society, and people will repeat them blindly and just assume that they're true because they've heard them a lot of times, which is very interesting when you study how governments and people that are bad actors want to manipulate people. It's like they just repeat the same phrase over and over again, like that Nazi propagandist guy supposedly said that if a lie repeated often enough becomes a truth. Well, this thing about breakfast being the most important meal of the day was always kind of used as an excuse to tell you not to skip breakfast. Well, I think that breakfast is an important meal in a different way. It's an important meal in that you better not screw it up, because if you do, it will ruin your day. So actually, I skipped breakfast for a while. I used to do the intermittent fasting thing, which is like you don't eat food between 8 p.m. and 12 p.m. the next day. And I didn't really have much of a difference in energy levels because of that. So I don't think that eating breakfast is all that important. Like if you skip it, it's not really a big deal. But what is important is that you don't eat the wrong thing for breakfast. And American breakfast is like the worst stuff imaginable. If you think about it, what do Americans eat for breakfast? And this is probably true in other places as well, but we're probably the worst. We eat, breakfast cereal with milk, or we eat waffles or pancakes or Pop-Tarts or French toast with maple syrup. It's not even really maple syrup, it's corn syrup with some artificial chemical that makes it taste sort of like maple. So what we're doing is we're just trashing the beginning of our day. We're eating a whole bunch of empty carbs, and the worst kind of empty carbs in many cases, especially if there's corn syrup involved. There's a bunch of gluten in all of these things. And then if we eat any protein, it's like bacon and eggs, which eggs aren't so bad. But bacon, like pork fat, like a lot of pork fat, is very difficult for your cardiovascular system to process. It takes a lot of your energy. And then milk is really bad for you, or yogurt or whatever milk products you're taking. Unless you have raw milk from a farm, which most people don't. So you probably have noticed, if you look back, if you haven't noticed these patterns, just kind of look back and think about when was the last time, for me, if I have pancakes for breakfast, and I like pancakes, pancakes and maple syrup is delicious. And if you can, by the way, get real maple syrup, don't get the corn syrup with maple maple flavoring. That stuff is awful for you. Real maple syrup is actually good for you. So if you eat that, then that's not too bad. There's always substitutes, by the way, for like everything that you eat that you like that's bad for you. You can almost always find a substitute that tastes almost as good, if not as good or better, that is much better for you, that's not so terrible for you. So anything that has high fructose corn syrup in it, don't eat that. Find a version that has real sugar, or better yet, something that's like a very natural type of sugar, such as maple syrup or honey. So think about, what have you eaten, especially for breakfast, and like how has it made you feel? So for me, if I eat a bunch of pancakes for breakfast, I know that I'm just going to be tired for basically the rest of the day. Maybe not the whole day. Maybe I'll kind of come back to around like evening time. But so, and then you can kind of, once you start to recognize those patterns, then you can notice the trade-off, and you can ask, is it worth it? You know, yeah, I feel good and it tastes good to eat pancakes for 15 minutes, but then for the next 6 hours I feel like crap. Is it really worth it? And so probably a lot of times, and maybe the answer is yes, you know, maybe it's worth it to you, and that's fine. It's just be aware of it. Be aware of what the trade-off is. And so if you want to have energy, then don't eat empty carbs, don't eat milk, don't eat like high fructose corn syrup for breakfast. I like to eat fruit. My breakfast is usually just a bunch of fruit. And you may not think of fruit as being filling, but if you eat enough fruit, then it becomes filling. And it gives you energy, and it's good for you. It has a lot of nutrients in it. And so that's what I do for breakfast. And then, of course, there's sleep quality, right? And there's a whole lot of stuff I could go into about that. I mean, the most obvious is just get enough sleep. Try to get 8 hours of sleep, or as close to it as you can get. Another big thing, too, is to turn the lights off, or almost off, for an hour before you go to sleep. If you're having a hard time going to sleep, that could be it. It could also be that you're staring at a LED screen, like a phone or a TV or an iPad, that's bright LED light that's basically tells your body, because your eyes are taking in cues of when it's daytime versus when it's nighttime, and your eyes don't really realize that a bright LED light is not the sun. It feels like it's daytime, and so it keeps you awake, makes it hard to go to sleep. So get rid of that. And I know I'm being a total hypocrite here because I'm filming this on my LED screen phone right now, and it's before I'm about to go to bed, so this is not the greatest idea in the world, although it's not very bright at the moment. And I'm not really looking at it directly. I'm trying to look into the camera lens because, hey, I'm talking to you, the viewer. I'm not trying to just like stare at myself here. So those are the things you can do. And then exercise, of course. Like basically just keep yourself healthy. And there's so many things. And like I could go for hours on this. And there's so many things that people don't realize too. Like breathing in aerosols and all those stupid scents we use, like the Febreze and the air fresheners and all that stuff. It's just, you're breathing in chemicals and it's absorbing into your lungs and going into your bloodstream. It's poisoning you. Now, it's not poisoning you to the level where you have to go to the hospital and get your stomach pumped, but it's poisoning you on a smaller level such that it ruins your energy. And it's death by 1,000 cuts. There are a whole bunch of little things like that are doing that to you all at the same time. And so the more you can minimize those, the more you'll find your energy coming back. So that's the health aspect. That's kind of the physical health aspect, let's say, which is kind of the more obvious one. But then I want to talk about the less obvious one, which is actually more important in my opinion, which is psychological. Think about, has there been a time in your life when you have been utterly exhausted physically, and yet you were full of energy? So maybe you didn't get a whole lot of sleep. Maybe, well, let's say you were going to take a vacation that you've been looking forward to for a long time. You're super excited about it. Maybe you had to leave for the vacation early in the morning, and you stayed up late packing all your stuff, and you didn't get a very good night's sleep, and then you wake up in the morning and your body is tired, but you're full of energy because you're so excited for this vacation. And then think of another time when you were perfectly rested, like you had a great night's sleep, and then you were like, maybe you had to go to work and you were doing something boring, there was something you dreaded doing, and you found yourself at your desk and you're just falling over asleep. Even though you had plenty of sleep, maybe even you ate healthy, like you did everything right physically, but you still felt tired. Well, what happened there? Why is it that your body can be tired and yet you can have energy, or your body can be perfectly well rested and you have zero energy? What's going on there? Well, it's psychological, and the mind is more powerful than matter, in my humble opinion. Your mind can make you do incredible things. I mean, it's like that, the stories of the women that, like the mothers that will lift up a car to save their children. You know, the mind can do absolutely remarkable things that the body should not be capable of, or at least according to basic physical science. So, what's going on there? Well, your mind, if you think about the two situations that I just had you consider there, your mind is either giving you the energy or it's taking away the energy. And it's giving you energy when you feel excited about something, right? You're excited about that vacation you're going to take in the morning, and you're anticipating it. You're thinking about how amazing it's going to be. That excitement, that feeling of excitement, gives you energy. Or if you've ever been excited to work on a project, like there's something that you wanted to do that you thought was going to have a really amazing result, and even though it was hard to do, you could just feel the result of that project. You could feel all the money that you were going to make, or how great your body was going to look, or whatever it is that was the result, the desire from that project. You could feel it in your bones, and it felt so good that it just gave you this amazing amount of energy. And then with my counter example, right, when you're at work, and even though you're perfectly well rested, you're falling asleep, it's because you're dreading. It's the opposite of excitement. It's something that you really don't want to do. You're bored out of your mind. When you're bored, you fall asleep, right? That's why everybody falls asleep in school, because school is boring. And it shouldn't be boring, right? Because learning is exciting, at least for me. If you're learning something that's actually interesting and useful to your life and you feel good about it, then learning is exciting. Hopefully, this is what you're learning from this video is exciting to you. But school is dead boring. And I think it's actually made that way on purpose, because the purpose of school is to train you to be a factory worker. And factory work is the most boring thing in the world. And so, and you can even look into the history of this, like in 100 years ago, they thought that 95% of people were going to have to be factory workers. They just thought that's the way the economy was going to go, and only 5% of people should be trained to use their brains. So for the 95%, they created this public school system, which was all about teaching you how to do this boring routine day in and day out, and be just smart enough to follow directions and be able to read the manuals for, like, the instructions for how to operate the factory machines, but not actually think for yourself. And you can see that this is the case because you have bells that tell you when to be in your seat and when to get out, and you can't be like 10 seconds later, you get in trouble, and you have to ask for permission to go to the bathroom, etc., etc., etc. Like, it's all made to train factory workers. And so the fact that school is boring is actually a feature, not a bug. It's intended. It's supposed to be boring. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent, but the point is that boredom or dread makes you tired. It saps your energy. It takes your energy away. Okay, so what do you do with that? Well, what you have to do is find ways to reduce boredom, reduce dread, reduce discouragement, and keep yourself with energy. Keep yourself excited, because excited means energized, means motivated. How do you keep yourself excited? Well, this is it. You think about all of the wonderful things that are going to result from the thing that you want to make yourself do. And this can be difficult in some cases, such as in your job, right? If you have a boring job, then you just have to think of, like, if I do a really good job of my job, what good can come of it? And you might have to think a little bit in the future. You have to think, okay, well, if I do a really good job here, then I can have maybe it's just I get my task finished quickly enough that I can learn this other thing, and this other thing can make me rich. Or I do such a good job of this that I get promoted to manager, and then I get promoted to whatever else, and I can climb in my career path as a result of that, right? And if you imagine the good outcomes of that, and then do the second and third order outcomes. So if I get promoted, then I'm going to make this much money, and this is what I'm going to do with the money. I'm going to buy this car that I've always wanted. I'm going to be able to attract the wife that I've always wanted. I'm going to go on this vacation that I've always wanted. And when I go on this vacation to Paris, I'm going to be looking up at the Eiffel Tower, and I'm going to be going to this nice little cafe, and just kind of build out the image in your mind of exactly what is going to happen as a result of you doing this thing, and it will make you excited, and it will give you the energy that you need in order to power you through. Now, the same is true in the opposite direction. If you're dreading something and you're thinking about how terrible it's going to be, well, that's going to sap your energy, and so you have to discipline your mind so that you take your thoughts away from those kind of things. If you're thinking negatively, if you're thinking about a future that is unfavorable to you, then that's going to drain your energy, so stop thinking about it. And instead, think about something that is favorable to you. If you do that, then you will have an endless supply of energy and motivation, and that energy will drive you to do the things that you know that you need to do in order to get the things that you desire in your life. So give that a try. Let me know how it works, and I'll see you in the next one.